From San Diego, California, this is a One Extraordinary Marriage show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex is taking the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DeLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call on the Hug Hotline at 858-876-5663. That's 858-876-5663. In today's show, we talk about what you can do to be sensual and how you can share these ideas with your spouse.
And I want you to think about this quote attributed to Anonymous. It said, being sensual in your marriage doesn't end on the honeymoon. Your marriage needs all five senses working throughout. And we're going to be talking about those five senses because I think a lot of times we get stuck on maybe one or two in marriage. And we really need to be talking about all five. But we start each and every One Extraordinary Marriage show with a hug, and the hug's an opportunity for you to hear from somebody else just like you, somebody who's experiencing transformation in their marriage. And this week's hug is sponsored by HelloFresh. You can check them out at HelloFresh.com. HelloFresh is the meal kit delivery service that makes cooking more fun so you can focus on the whole experience and not just the final plate. For Tony and I, this was precious time spent in the kitchen in the middle of busy kids' schedules, running to get stuff done, recording the One Extraordinary Marriage show. The time that we spent doing the honey mustard glazed chicken, which to die for.
Totally. And
the sizzling beef stir fry. So good. It was so easy, guys, that even our 11-year-old made dinner one night.
Yep.
You know, each week HelloFresh creates new delicious recipes with step-by-step instructions designed to take around 30 minutes for everyone from novices to those seasoned home cooks who are short on time. HelloFresh is now offering light summer meals and has just introduced breakfast options, all for less. I know. How cool is that? All for less than $10 a meal. Guys, you can't go out to eat for that.
No.
You can't go out to eat. So for $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com and enter promo code OEM30 when you subscribe.
It's a steal. It really is. And what a fun way. I'll just say it is a fun way for the two of you just to have some time together in the kitchen, which for Elise and I can be difficult because we're running around with the kids. But with HelloFresh, everything was just right there, ready to go, boom, and on to it.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to surprise your spouse too, because you can even make dinner for them if you're the one that's not usually in the kitchen, because you've got all the instructions, all the food. It's super, super easy. So check it out at HelloFresh.com. Enter promo code OEM30 and get $30 off your first week when you subscribe. So this hug comes from an email that we had recently received, and it says, my husband, I, and our 4 children recently traveled 16 hours on vacation. I just want to stop right there. Tony and I would I don't know that we would make it 16 hours. So kudos to you.
Yes.
And your 4 kids and husband. While the kids were asleep, we had lots of time to talk. If I can be honest, the conversation immediately went sour when we started talking about us. My husband is the pastor of a spirit-filled, outreach-driven, 650-plus member congregation. I work right beside him in ministry as well as in our community reaching people. We homeschool our 4 children ages 17 to 9, and we are passionate about our marriage and our family. However, we realized that our intimacy lifestyle had gone sour, and we were desperate. I had never heard of you before, yet after our heartfelt and heated conversation while driving, I said a desperate prayer under my breath. God answered immediately. While still on the trip, I discovered your podcast, and our life has been changed. Not only have we started the intimacy lifestyle, which is revolutionary, but I am a changed wife.
Amen.
I have chosen our initiation dates. I've shared your material, thoughts, and ideas of what I'm learning with my husband, but I've not shared the podcast. Not sure of my motive, but I'm enjoying the thrill of a changed me.
Awesome.
My husband is a disciplined man in the gym and in the Word daily. There was a time when we were both Beachbody believers, so to hear you talk of Shakeology and workouts together brings back good memories in our marriage. All that seemed to fall to the side. Since finding you both, I'm a changed wife inside and out. You've encouraged me to not just make a simple commitment, but to take a plunge. I've shared your podcast with my girlfriends, and I will continue to share with ladies I offer spiritual counsel.
Right on.
Thank you for being transparent in your conversations, yet keeping it clean. As a pastor's wife, it's nice to have resources to share about such a needful yet private topic and not feel sleazy. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a awesome hug. I love it. Well, there's a couple of things that I just love in it. And honestly, for those of you who have been listeners for a long time and part of the One Family, or if you're new to the One Family, welcome. This is a transformation that we seek and are so excited to hear when we come behind these mics. And for those of you who've been part of the One Family for a long time, you know this. I mean, we're gonna shoot straight. And last week was one of those weeks. And I want to just thank each and every one of you who wrote in, who sent your condolences. Truly blessed beyond belief to have such an amazing family around us that's supporting us through this time. And it's emails like this, hugs like this that just go, oh, yes, that's why we get behind the mics, even during difficult times, because life happens. And like you guys, it happens to us, and we want you to know that you're not alone, and change can happen, and things will transform if you're intentional and you take action in your life and in your marriage.
Well, and I just want to say one thing before we jump into the show too. There was a line in there where she talks about the fact that she hasn't shared the podcast yet. And, we hear from a lot of you that are like, oh, Tony and Lisa, I want my spouse to listen to the show. I want my spouse to listen to the show. I love what she said here, that she's enjoying the change in her, and she's taking a lot of action. So she's not even saying, hey, babe, you need to listen to this, or, hey, did you check this out? This is what I'm listening to. She actually made a decision, a conscious decision, that she's going to keep working on herself and allow her husband to be the recipient of the changed her without being like, here's the secret sauce to what's going on. So for those of you that are wondering about sharing the show, maybe take a word of advice from this wife and just say, you know what, I'm just going to work on me for the time being. So just something to think about, because I know we get that a lot from those of you that have been listening a while. But like Tony said at the top of the show, we're talking about being sensual. And realized a few weeks ago when I was hosting a Facebook Live show with Coach Andy LeBrun that we hadn't really ever talked about being sensual in your marriage. And she threw this word out. And, being a coach myself, I'm constantly asking, well, what do you mean by that? In fact, my kids will actually mimic me. They're like, Mom, what do you mean by that? But I asked her, because sensual is kind of one of those words that I think we all know, but it just sort of like hovers out there. Like, what does that mean? And so I said, Andy, tell me what that means. She just goes, it's being in the moment with all of your senses. And to be real honest, she had me at the be in the moment. Because I got to tell you guys, I'm not always completely in the moment with Tony.
Same here.
I'm not. There have been times when we're in bed and we're getting ready to have sex, and he's like, hello. I'm right here. Can you get your head into the bedroom with us? Can you maybe even get your head right here, right now? And before anybody starts to send Tony the evil emails, he has my permission to call me out. Okay, that's an agreement that we have in our marriage, that if someone's not being present, the other person has permission to draw attention to that.
Right. And because we've learned in our years that if we don't bring that up, honestly, there's going to be more resentment and more frustration afterwards. So we rather bring it up in the front end, for us anyways, to bring that up now and say, hey, what's happening? So let's work through this now. So that way, when we are intimate, we are fully engaged with one another. Does it happen every single time? No, we're not perfect. We try as best as we can. But I will tell you, when we do that and we do say, hey, we're here together, this past week has been that way. I will say, even with the passing of my father, our sexual intimacy has been crazy off the hook. It's awesome. I love it, because we are completely in that moment. And I think we realize, both of us do, with the passing of my father, that these times together are precious. These moments together are precious. And so it's so raw and so in our face right now that our lovemaking has really taken it up a notch.
Bam. I feel like Emerald right there.
Boom.
Take it up a notch.
There
Bam.
you go.
Bam. Well, I want to even take a step back too, as we're talking about being essential and being in the moment. you guys know we have school age kids, but it's been a while since we've actually like gone over the five senses. That's kind of like first and second grade science. And so I just thought, let's just put it in the show.
Yeah.
Just in case somebody's like, what are those five senses? Right. So it's hearing, sight, touch, taste, and smell. And a lot of you're like, okay, Lisa, yeah. No big deal. I hear my spouse maybe more than I want to, nag, nag, nag. I see them, when they walk in the house. Yeah, I touch them from time to time. Like, this is no big deal. Or is it? And the fact of the matter is that being sensual or not being sensual in our marriage has such heavy implications. Guys, not being sensual, what that does, it gets you to the place where you're just going through the motions. And some of you, if sensuality has left your marriage, that not being present with all of your senses, if that's left the marriage, you might be hearing things like, what did you say? I wasn't paying attention. Or you don't ever really look at me. Or we never hold hands anymore. I can't remember the last time we made love. We don't spend any time together. Right? These are all things or variations thereof that are that red warning flag that says maybe the sensuality is diminishing in our marriage, because you guys have heard this word probably 1,001 times in the 380 plus shows that we've done. But the fact of the matter is that when you start to lose that sensuality, it comes from a lack of intentionality in your marriage.
And can I just say one thing? For most of us, me included, when I hear this and I think of our five senses, typically I go straight to touch. And so when we're talking today, if that's you, if you're like, oh, well, we touch or I touch her, or I touch him all the time, take that one out and start looking at the other four. So whatever one it might be, but just think about that. So if, the hearing, the sight, the taste, and the smell, those ones are the ones that lack, how are you going to bring those into your marriage? Because Elise and I feel like we touch a lot.
A lot.
In not in a sense of always sexual. Even when we're out on our walk-in talks, it's holding hands. Driving down the road, it's her hand on my knee, my hand on her arm, whatever it may be. But as we even go through this show, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, am I hearing? Am I using that sight enough? Is the taste and the smell aspect of our relationship being used?
And I want to dig into these just a little bit more, because like Tony said, the touch one's so easy to go to.
It is. And I think that's when people think they're just like,
of course, we're being sensual. We touch each other.
We're cuddling. We're sleeping naked. And even we talk about this a lot. And so this one sort of breaks that paradigm a little bit and gives you a little bit of a shakeup to go, okay, touch is good, but are we doing these other ones?
Right, because like case in point, I was thinking about this the other day, even as part of this interview that I did with Andy, and thinking about how did I look at Tony 23 years ago when he would walk in a room and like literally my heart felt like it was pounding out of my chest, because I was just like, oh my gosh, he's in the same room. Like you remember that, like those looks that the two of you would exchange.
The smell. The perfume, the cologne, and it may not even been perfume or cologne, but maybe we were at areas that the heightened smell, which brings back those memories, those types of things. Like I'm thinking about, because I was a kitchen cook back then. I mean, I think about just the morning breakfast time.
Sure.
That was a big one, just knowing, because you'd walk into the kitchen, you'd sit up on the counter, and as I was cooking eggs and bacon.
Not the most sanitary, but we also
we're college students. But that was back in the day. But I'm thinking those are the smells that come back to those memories and times together.
And looking at that between the two of you, right? Because like this, you've got the sense of sight, right? What do you see? Does your spouse just like walk through your line of vision and you don't even register who they are or what they've done? And I think of the sight one specifically. We have a teenage son. And teenage boys, by and large, are not known for their observation skills. Stereotypical. I'm going to go there. I have a son who, like, if I do anything different, whether it's hair or nails or anything, like the minute he sees me, he's like, what, you did your nails. Like he would look at my, like, and this has been the case since he was like 3. I don't know what it is, but just that observant character, to the point where, now Tony looks too. I mean, it's not just the 14-year-old son. but you have this, like, what do you see when you see your spouse, right? How do they smell? I will tell you, Tony and I are both sniffers. And what I mean by that is that we smell each other. There's a very distinct
odor.
Smell.
I don't know if I'd say odor, but
I would say smell.
Yeah.
Very distinct smell that you and your spouse have. Right? And you know it because you can walk into their closet and you can tell, like, oh, okay, that's the way my husband smells. That's the way my wife smells.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But are you aware of it? Or is it just like you're numb? Right? I think, go ahead.
No, and I was going to say for myself, especially during ovulation, for Elisa, again, fertility book again. I always forget the name of that book. Taking charge
of your fertility.
Yes. This is something we learned in there, right? There are specific chemicals that are released from Elisa's body. And so during that time, I've become very in tune with that. Like, I can smell that. But was it always that way? No. It was a learned it was
response.
something, it was a learned response. It was something that over time that we discussed it, we talked about that. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I can totally smell that. But that's being sensual. That's knowing your spouse and responding to them during different times of the month.
And it's so funny because he says that now, and I'm like, Tony probably knows when I'm ovulating more than I do, because all of a sudden, and you talk about those pheromones, guys, you get in touch with your wife's pheromones and the odor and just everything that's going, the smell that's coming off of her when she's ovulating. Oh my gosh. It's amazing. It's why we schedule the 7 days of sex challenge, guys, during the week of ovulation. Why? Because everything's in sync.
It's
heightened sensuality.
Right. And this is something that you can't even smell it, can you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm aware of it only because I think in response to your actions.
Right.
But for the longest time, and because I chart my cycle, so I just know, but for the longest time, I had no idea. Like, he would be like all over me during the middle of my cycle, not even me being aware of it. I'm like, get back. Right. Until I realized, oh, this is the way that we are so awesomely created.
It's true.
To have this heightened arousal, to have this heightened sensuality. And so, it's looking at the fact that, as we talk about sensuality, it's not just, saying I love you and touching your spouse, right? Touch is the easy one. It's the way that your eyes meet. And we talked about this a little bit in last week's show when we were talking about Tony's parents and at the moment that he died, there was it literally was a very sensual moment watching their eyes just be locked together and knowing that they were seriously having a moment there.
Yes.
Right? The way you look at your spouse conveys I love you. The way, we've talked a little bit about the smell, but I'm even going to say taste is going into those kisses, right? How you can say I love you, and this is probably my weakest area. The way you say I love you with the taste, with your kiss, that touch and that connection there. Tony's laughing because he's like, yeah, you don't do this at all. He's like, it sounds really good on the podcast, Elisa. When are we going to get this one in practice?
There are couples that, when they kiss, man, it's sensual. It's that they are in it, and it is beautiful. It's something of just beauty. It really is.
And that's not us. Go ahead.
No. It's not us. It's Elisa does, in all honesty, has a difficult time with this. It has been since, I don't know if it's been from the beginning. I think in the beginning you would just French kiss and do all that stuff early on. But it's one of those things. It is absolutely hilarious. And it's something that you learn, and you love her, and I love her for it.
Yes.
You love your spouse for who they are. And it's not like I try to push her into doing it because it's what I want to do. It's what we navigate that and we make it work for us. But it's, you would not see us like full on French kissing in the middle of the road or in this way romantic place. Just wouldn't happen. You see the pecs, maybe a long peck.
This is real.
I love you,
guys. This is where after
it's true.
7.5 years.
But you got to do you guys, right? You got to make the sensuality part of your relationship. You guys, not somebody else. You don't need to be Tony and Elisa or anybody else that you see on social media. You need to do you guys. And so if French kissing isn't your wife's thing or your husband's thing, then okay, that's their thing. But many people would think we're a little weird and sort of overboard when it comes to the smelling part. Because that is something, no kidding. I mean, it is like I am nose into Elisa's neck area because it's an absolute turn on. And she's like, you're a nut.
Oh my gosh. I love that we can be so real with each one of you because, when we're talking about these things, every couple is going to be somewhere on the spectrum, right? And, we have a responsibility to our marriage and to ourselves to get all of our senses engaged. Right. To not just rely on the sense of touch. And, as we've been talking about all of these things about being sensual with one another, I just want to remind you that one way to enjoy the sensuality of food is to take advantage of the incredible offer from HelloFresh. Let them help you make great tasting food while cooking with the freshest ingredients, all delivered to your doorstep in a recyclable insulated box. For $30 off your first week of HelloFresh, visit HelloFresh.com and enter promo code OEM30 when you subscribe. And, we're talking about this. We're talking about food. I love the fact that we've got HelloFresh, sponsored because food is just one of those ways, right? Like Tony said, we associate certain tastes with our spouse. It becomes that, it's like when I was writing the show, it reminds me of that little sing song that kids do, the KISSING.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you're a kid, that's super funny when you're 7 and then you're, 37 and you're like, yeah, like Tony said, just a peck, but it's not just kissing mouth to mouth, right? If we're going to taste our spouses, kiss them all over their body. Right?
I'm talking oral too.
Absolutely.
They're to us, my goodness, that is by far unbelievable. Oral sex.
And it's another way to taste, right? It's with each one of the senses and being sensual, being in the moment with your senses. These are all different ways to say, I love you. So can we embrace the fact that we have 5 senses that allow us to say, I love you, so that it's more than just 3 little words that we utter. It's actually an expression through our bodies that we have, so show your spouse with your mouth how much you love them, more than just saying the words, touch. It's about time, if you haven't already, that the two of you have a conversation on how your spouse likes to be touched.
It's necessary from non-sexual to sexual. Both of those are important because, like I brought up earlier, walk and talks, we could be holding hands, driving down the road, her hand on my knee, my hand on her arm. Non-sexual. Those to us mean there is a connection happening in our lives and in our marriage. When those two stop happening, and those are the 2 big ones for us, by the way, we don't have like 30 of them. We have 2 that really matter. When those 2, when the link is broken there, we know something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
We just do. And we need to start correcting and course correcting and going, what's happening? Like, where's the distance coming in from? And what do we need to do? What are we not talking about? What has been on our minds that we're just holding in? Because if we don't have those 2 from a non-sexual touch, we know something's up.
And with touch too, what materials? Like what fabrics does your spouse love? It's being naked. What does that touch look like? There are so many different ways that you can look at touch. Hearing. Okay, what are you really hearing from your spouse? If it sounds like a lot of nagging or complaining, that's an indicator that there's a disconnect, right? That's an indicator that maybe the listening part needs to get, like Tony said, kicked up a notch, right? Because somebody will nag or complain when they feel like they're not being heard.
And I want to bring this one to the sexual side of things, especially for hearing, how important it is to verbalize what you're experiencing in the bedroom.
That's a good one.
And this could be from normal groans, moans, pleasure, to even words being spoken of, touch me here. I like that, whatever it may be. But this is another, hearing and using that sense during your sexual time is really important. It can be a tough one. And I'll say even for us at times, it can feel a little awkward. And yet through practice and talking through it with each other, it adds such an ability for you to enjoy the sexual intimacy together.
It adds a whole nother depth, a whole nother layer of depth.
Because you're not guessing.
Right. Like, is this working or isn't it?
Right.
And if you get the positive affirmation, more of that, please. Smell. Right. If like years ago, I remember when Tony and I first met, he would always wear cologne. Was it Drakkar back then? What were you wearing?
I don't.
I think it was Drakkar.
That was high school. I don't know if college.
Keep in mind, this was the mid 90s. So
early 90s.
Well, we met.
Mid 90s.
Yeah. But if your spouse has a favorite scent and it does something for you to help you get in the moment, right? It just engages you with them. Encourage them to wear it. Babe, I love it when you wear that smell. Like I've got a little thing of honey, which I think is Michael Kors. I don't remember who makes honey. But every once in a while I'll put it on and Tony, like immediately his radar systems go off. It's like, whoa.
Another way for smell, non-sexual and sexual, essential oils. Are there different oils that you do like? Because some people, even for myself now, like a cologne, I'm just not wearing it. But a peppermint essential oil as an aftershave mixed in with an apricot oil, I love it. It's just one of those things that it's fresh on my face. It feels good. Elisa laughed, but it's true.
It's totally true. It's
I don't
funny.
want a bunch of chemical based stuff on my face after I've shaved. That's just me. Diffuser in your bedroom. That's a way to add smell. Is it candles? What is it that you use and that you like that enhances, again, just in your day-to-day as well as into the bedroom?
And one other thing on the smell, helping you be sensual. Some of you may need to take a shower before you have sex.
Yep.
Like I'm just going to say sometimes washing off the day's sweat and kid stuff and everything else, that just brings a whole nother layer to your sensuality because you're not like in that old smell. You're in like, I'm new and I'm fresh. I'm ready to go.
So here's how this got introduced for us is Elisa and I were talking, like I was saying earlier, we enjoy oral sex. She had an issue though at times, if it's evening time and she's gone through the whole day, she felt like, I don't want you to go down on me. I just don't feel
fresh.
I'm not fresh. And so we talked about this and she goes, listen, if I take a shower before, then it's game on and it's cool. And so that helped us. And for me to understand that, hey, from a sense of smell and freshness, that helped Elisa get in the mood.
Mm-hmm. And the last one is sight. What's that visual image of love that you're presenting to your spouse, right? Are you taking the time to be in the moment, right? And this, those of you that have listened to shows from years and years ago, you know the show where I talked about wearing a old Dr. Seuss t-shirt on date night, which like I even have trouble saying that out loud. But it's what are those things that
and it wasn't just it was Dr. Seuss. It was just old and sort of ratty and
I like Dr. Seuss. It wasn't really date night material, right? But it's what's that visual that you're giving to your spouse that says you're important, I love you, and I desire to be with you? Is it lingerie? Is it the Jinshi boxers that Tony has that I absolutely love? Is it setting the environment in your bedroom because you've created a visual that is pleasing, right? Get the clutter, get the electronics out of your bedroom, create it as a sanctuary. Right? What can you do to visually stimulate your spouse? What can you do to visually enhance the environment that the two of you are in?
Right. And I would say check out our 11 must-have items for your bedroom because in this document, you will be able to touch on all of these in some way, some form. So you can go to oneextraordinarymarriage.com/must-have. I'll also have that in the show notes for you guys. So check out that list. Pick up those items that for you and your spouse would add to your sensuality. You guys, we hope that this helped you guys see the sensual part of your marriage in a different light and in a different way and how you can use these 5 different senses, right? And if you're struggling with one of them right now, hone in on that together. Look at that area and go, okay, touch, we got it down. We sleep naked. We cuddle together. We touch, we hold hands. And yet when it comes to smell, we're lacking. Well, let's add that. What do we do? Talk about it together so you can figure out the smells and the ways that you add those smells to yourselves and into your bedroom to heighten the sensuality and your sexuality. So go for it. Enjoy it. We love you guys. We thank you so much for all your love and support. This show wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We love you guys and have an awesome, awesome week. Love you guys.